When you look online and on this very platform at how to manage low back pain, you'll often find a lot of conflicting and confusing information. And to be quite honest, some of it is very poorly evidenced, and there's still a lot of old school negative rhetoric out there that is going to get you better slower and lead to poor health beliefs. So in today's video, we're going to give you our top 10 most common myths and misconceptions when it comes to managing low back pain. And make sure you stay tuned until the end, where I'm going to give you an extra bonus myth that is designed to save you some money. Hello, it's Luke here from Genuine Physio, where we bring you honest, evidence-based information and education to get you guys back on the road to recovery. If you're new around here, subscribe to the channel, and if you like what you see, then a thumbs up is always appreciated. As always, there will be some useful information in the description below about today's topic, and we're keen to keep things interactive, so drop us a comment or come and say hi on social media. We're on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook, and with all that out of the way, let's get going. Myth number one is rest. Now, gone are the days where you go to your doctor because you've got back pain and they advise you to take to your bed for a few weeks. We know that being inactive is going to cause muscle weakness, general deconditioning, and also importantly, you'll probably lose a bit of confidence in your movement. And these things are all going to take you longer to get better. What we would advise is relative rest. So basically moving around as much as possible into tolerable levels of pain, making sure you're avoiding a flare-up. And just remember, motion is lotion. It's very cheesy. Myth number two is pain equals damage. Now, unfortunately, it is a common societal misconception whereby we believe if we're in pain, there must be some sort of structural damage or structural impairment. With all of the developments in pain science and medicine, we now know that actually pain correlates quite poorly with structural damage. And that's great news because, like I was saying in the last myth, it means we know we're safe to move around into tolerable levels of discomfort without doing any more damage. Now, this is a quite complex topic all by itself, and I am planning on bringing out a whole series on the complexities around pain, why we get it and how it works very soon, so make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it. Myth number three is avoid exercise if you've got back pain. Now, if your pain isn't allowing you to do exactly what you were doing before, you're much better off trying to modify what you were doing before rather than stopping completely. For example, if you were going to the gym and doing a spin class 3 times a week for 45 minutes, you might want to go to the gym 3 times a week and sit on a bike by yourself at a lower intensity for 15 minutes so you're still doing something. And if you are worried about making things worse, then that is completely understandable, but try and use this principle. It is fine and safe to, and in fact we want to, feel a bit sore and a bit achy for a few days after exercise, as long as things then settle down. What we want to do is avoid a flare-up or spike in your symptoms. But if that does happen, again, don't worry, it's probably just a sign that you've done a bit too much too soon. Just take a few easy days, modify your activities again, but then continue to do something. Myth number four is avoid bending. This is my favourite myth because it is everywhere and it's all over the internet. Particularly advised, apparently, if you have a disc problem. But this is a very old school biomedical mechanical way of thinking about things, whereby if you move forwards, your disc goes backwards. That doesn't happen, and we will discuss why a little bit later on in the video. What we do know that will happen is if you stop bending for any period of time, like we said earlier, you'll become slightly more deconditioned, your muscles will get weaker and tighter, your joints will get stiffer, and you will have an increased sensitivity to pain as well as increased fear of movement. And we know all of these things will get you better slower. Ultimately, your spine only has a few jobs. One of those jobs is to move. It is designed to bend and twist and lift and carry things. and the longer you avoid those things, the more difficult they will become. If you are having a problem with bending, what you need to do is find out what you can do and then gradually build from there. For example, if bending 100% of the way is too painful, but you can tolerate going 50% of the way, just do that and gradually progress. Myth number 5 is I need a scan to find out what's going on with my injury. Now, before we go any further, there definitely is a very small percentage of people that do need a scan to find out what's going on, and they are people that present with red flags. And conveniently, I've put a video together on low back pain red flags, and you can find a link to that in the description below. Now, scans and imaging is something that we get asked about an awful lot, and there is quite a lot to discuss, which is why I'm going to do a whole video on this very topic, and that will be coming to you very soon. When it is ready, I'll pop a link in the description below. But for the purpose of today's video, I'm just going to briefly touch on a few factors that may indicate why you don't need a scan to find out what's going on. So very briefly, factor 1 is if you see a qualified musculoskeletal specialist, they have been educated and trained in diagnosing injuries. Secondly, we know that scans normally come back with incidental or normal findings that are sometimes confused with disease or pathology. Thirdly, pain correlates poorly with scans and scans correlate poorly with pain. And lastly, most musculoskeletal issues, in particular back pain, should be managed conservatively before thinking about any invasive treatment. And therefore, a scan is not going to change the management of that conservative treatment. Myth number 6 is my spine, my sacroiliac joint or my pelvis is out of line or out of place. Quite honestly guys, the only way this can really happen is through some fairly significant trauma. Your sacroiliac joint in particular is one of the most immobile, stable joints in your body, and all of these structures are surrounded by big, strong muscles and very thick ligamentous tissue. As a result, they can all undergo very excessive forces, which is what they're designed to do. All this narrative does is reinforce the fact there is something broken or wrong with you and that you need fixing. And unfortunately, this is likely to take you longer to get better. And that brings us nicely onto myth number 7, which is I've got a slipped disc or a trapped nerve. Now, we've just mentioned that your spinal column is surrounded by very thick ligamentous tissue, and this keeps the discs in place. Very rarely you can develop a disc herniation where the inner part of the disc protrudes slightly and can put extra pressure on the nerve, and that can make the nerve irritated or inflamed or sensitized, and that can cause pain. But the disc has not slipped and the nerve is not trapped. And what normally happens is over a period of time, this will resolve itself. Myth number 8 is poor posture being attributed to your back pain. Studies have been done on people with stereotypically poor posture and stereotypically good posture, and they found no differences in the amount of neck and back pain that they had. The only thing that has really changed over the past couple of decades is that most of us move quite a bit less. We spend more time working at our desks, we spend more time watching the old Netflix, and our muscles don't like being in one position for a long period of time. They become stiffer, weaker and tighter, and that can cause pain. So the message is, don't get hooked up on posture, but do get hooked up on moving a bit more frequently. Myth number 9 is that you need time off work because of your back pain. Now obviously this is very subjective. Different people's work require different things from their backs. And also we know that employers are very different. But we do know that work is really beneficial for your confidence, your self-esteem, your physical activity and your mental health. And the contrary is the same if you're out of work. Also, the longer you're out of work, often the more difficult it can be to get back. So just a quick message to say that just because you've got back pain doesn't necessarily mean that you need time off. And lastly, myth number 10 is you need a massage to fix your back pain. Now don't get me wrong, I will be at the front of the queue if people are offering out massages. They feel nice, you feel relaxed afterwards, they make you feel looser, and we're human beings, we're tactile people, and we like being touched. But massage is not an essential part of low back pain management. There is some evidence in the literature to suggest that it can help with short-term pain relief when used on the appropriate person. But it should never really be used in isolation, and you should be given the right messages about exactly what it is doing. It should always be used in conjunction with the gold standard of treatment for low back pain, which is education, advice, and exercise. And if you do think that's a bit controversial, then feel free to leave a comment below. Now, I told you at the beginning of the video, if you stay tuned until the end, I'd give you some extra juicy bonus advice to try and help you save some money. Now, because back pain is so common, the marketplace for back pain related products is huge. And some of them are okay, and some of them are the equivalent of putting your money in the toilet. So we're going to go through those now in terms of what the evidence tells us. So let's take a look. Here is a table I have put together for you for some of the more poorly evidenced products. The first one is a TENS machine, which is designed to electrically stimulate your muscles. My advice would be, if you would like to stimulate your muscles, then you could just do some exercise. The next one down is a back support, which is quite an old school thing that we used to pop around people's waists to restrict their movement. Obviously, we now know that restricting their movement is not a good idea because it's going to make them weaker and deconditioned. Postural correctors or tops or vests, normally advertised by a good-looking young man or woman with stereotypically good posture. As mentioned earlier, posture is not something that we need to worry about. Traction and inversion tables are designed to do the same thing, to decompress your spine, whereby one end of your body is anchored and the other end is pulled to try and relieve the pressure on the nerve, essentially. The evidence for these are poor, they're very expensive pieces of equipment, and an inversion table hangs you upside down by your ankles. Obviously, that's not too functional. Self-massage equipment, again, can be very expensive, and we've already mentioned the benefits of massage itself. If you do feel like you want those short-term benefits, then you'll probably get very similar outcomes with a hot water bottle and a golf or tennis ball. And the last one is orthotics or rocker shoes, which are also not very well evidenced for back pain. Now, what you'll notice from all of these products is they are all very passive, whereby you are relying on something external for your pain relief, rather than actively doing something yourself. And with that in mind, let's look at some of the well-evidenced products. And here is the table of well-evidenced products I have put together for you. I'm not going to go through it with you, you can probably see where I'm going with it. So the message is, you don't really need to spend lots of money on passive, poorly evidenced methods of treatment. You've probably got most of the things that you need at home, and if not, they're relatively inexpensive. The advice would be just to have a think about spending a bit more time, effort and money on living a generally healthier lifestyle, trying to do a bit more physical activity, because these are the things that are going to give you the long-term benefits in pain and quality of life that you're probably looking for. As always, thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you found today's video useful. If you have, then a thumbs up is appreciated. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more of Genuine Physio's videos. There'll be some useful links in the description below. And before you go, I want you to drop me a comment and let me know which back pain myth have you found most useful, and do you think I've missed any? Come and say hi on social media. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. And until next time, I will see you again very soon.